It would be no exaggeration to say that Robbert Eggers is one of the most interesting, capable, and visually gifted directors working in Hollywood today, and probably the only creative that I get genuinely excited about seeing new movies from. Such is the case with Nosferatu, a remake of the classic 1922 silent movie of the same name, which itself was a kind of unofficial knockoff of Bram Stoker's Dracula. Nice to see some things have never changed in the movie business. Anyway, the hype around this movie's been steadily building for months now. The trailer got everyone talking and speculating, and with the film finally out on Christmas Day of all times, it's time to stop speculating, strap on our big boy pants, and find out if Eggers can deliver the goods.
Well, we're waiting.
Well, yes he can. Nosferatu is a vampire movie quite unlike any other, doing for bloodsuckers what The Witch did for women inclined toward pointy hats and flying broomsticks. It actually makes them scary and dangerous and alien again, bringing together a superb cast who all deliver excellent performances, a brooding and intense atmosphere, gorgeous cinematography, and a less is more approach to the monster itself that's a welcome relief after years of exhausting CGI overloads. In short, it's a brilliant example of true gothic horror adapted smartly with the benefit of modern technology, but never losing the essence of what made the original so fascinating and influential. The plot follows the story of the original movie pretty closely, and because Universal Pictures are fucking assholes when it comes to copyright, I'm mostly going to be using footage from the 1922 version to illustrate my points. Also because it looks really cool. Anyway, with that in mind, grab your wooden stakes and holy water and let's begin, shall we? The story follows Ellen and Thomas Hutter, a married couple living in Germany in the mid-19th century. Hoping to advance his career as a real estate agent, Thomas takes on the job of selling an old castle to a reclusive aristocrat named Count Orlok, who just so happens to live in Transylvania. And yes, I think you can see where this one's going. Ellen really doesn't want him to go because she's got a bad feeling about this, but Thomas is like, nah, it'll be fine. But funnily enough, it isn't fine. The local villagers in Transylvania are about as welcoming as a working man's club in Glasgow, and Orlok himself turns out to be a terrifying, barely human monster man that inspires absolute dread in anyone who sees him. Again, much like a working man's club in Glasgow. Anyway, when Orlok sees a picture of Ellen in Thomas's locket, he decides he wants a bit of that action and imprisons Thomas in his castle to feed on him. Eventually though, Thomas manages to escape and the race is on to get back to Ellen before Orlok does. But will Thomas be able to save his wife and put an end to Orlok once and for all? And does a mysterious scientist and self-proclaimed vampire hunter hold the key to killing the monster? I'm not going to say any more about the story because I really want people to go and see this movie for themselves. What I will say though is if you don't want to know what happens, then don't watch or read about the original version because it does adhere pretty closely to the events of that film. You have been warned. Now, I said before that one of Eggers' biggest accomplishments with this movie is to present a genuinely dark and disturbing take on what's become a pretty played out Hollywood movie monster at this point. Because let's be honest, vampires have been played as everything from tragic romantic figures brooding on lost loves, to goofy and campy joke characters, to wisecracking heartthrobs that are so human they might as well just be regular people. Look man, I love Buffy as much as the next person, but one thing you can't accuse that show of is being fucking scary. Anyway, Nosferatu takes a very different approach. Count Orlok isn't some tragically misunderstood anti-hero looking for love and redemption. He's a creature of pure and total evil and malice, whose only goal is to feed and consume and destroy everything in his path. You don't even get a proper look at him at first. He's just this shadowy, menacing presence who always manages to keep himself just out of focus, just out of the light, just out of view. A monster you catch at the corner of your eye but you can never quite focus on. And credit to Bill Skarsgård for his work on this one. Not only did he probably have to sit through hours of prosthetics every day, but the guy does things with his voice that shouldn't even be possible. God knows what his vocal cords looked like after he was done with this movie, but it must have been rough. It's actually quite funny when I think about it that he's gone from one of the worst movies of the year to one of the best in the space of just a couple of months. Nicholas Hoult, on the other hand, is having the year of his fucking life, starring in Nosferatu and then playing Lex Luthor in Superman next July. Here though, he's perfect as Thomas, a well-meaning man caught up in events far beyond his understanding, trying to rationalise and understand an enemy that simply defies rationality. Willem Dafoe can elevate pretty much any movie that he's part of, and he seems to be a real favourite of Eggers, who always manages to bring out the best in him, and well, Nosferatu is no exception. Professor von Franz is clearly clearly based very heavily on Van Helsing from Dracula, but Defoe invests him with such intensity and surprising little touches of humour that you can't help but warm to the guy. It's always nice to see Ralph Ineson as well. He was fucking superb in The Witch, and he puts in a solid turn here as the Doctor trying to help Ellen. Another rational man trying to fight the supernatural with science and reason and coming up short. In terms of cinematography, soundtrack and direction, Nosferatu is an absolute treat. The soundtrack especially helps to create a dark, disturbing mood that just soaks into you the longer the movie goes on. Eggers has always been a strong visual director, willing to experiment and do the unconventional, and you can definitely see and feel the classic horror movie influences on this one. By all account, this was a passion project almost a decade in the making, a film that Eggers made because he cared deeply about the material and he had a story he really wanted to tell, instead of some corporatized sludge churned out to retain IP rights or fill a release slot. And well, it shows through in pretty much every aspect. And I really want to see more movies like this. Movies made by people with talent and skill who actually care about telling good stories. And if you're in the mood for a suitably spooky take on an old classic to round out your year, then The Drinker heartily recommends Nosferatu. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.